What in the world's happening with King County real estate? Let me take these off so there's no glare between me and you. We're together in this. All right, you're looking at the last 2 years of supply and demand. Actually, well, I'll do this and I'll zoom out a little bit. Look at the supply. Supply is green, jumping up in March, in February. No, where are we? What are we? This is March. Sorry. What's my name? March. Jumping up in March, way over February, right? Little teeny increase between January and February, huge increase in March, which is what I suspected would happen, and it's predictable with seasonality. And this is looking to me like we're getting into something of a more normal kind of seasonality market, right? The last 2 years have been, last 4 or 5 years have been a little fucked up because you got COVID, huge spikes of people selling and moving. Then interest rates tripled in 2023. No one moved. You can see that in the graph. So this March, we had 20 in King County, 2,500 homes went on market. We didn't get 2,500 homes all of 2023. There was no month where there were 2,500 homes sold in 2023. It's already better. Now, in March of 2024, there were just 2,100. So 400 more homes. What's that? That's 20%, 15%. That's a big jump over last year. And buying demand has kept up. So it's pretty consistent, okay, over the last 3 months. So when the listings go, the buyers show up. If we go out more than 2 years, let's just see what you see in King County going out further. Yeah. So you can see this is pandemic land, right? All those listings, right? Nothing in 2023 and 2024. Are we going to get back to this? That would be interesting. So now the listings were there in 2023, 2022, right? The buyers dropped off. Buying demand died last year and the year before. Buying demand is already over last year. So this looks like a more normal market. If we go out past that, we go out to 10 years. So you get a longer range picture of what normal looks like. And you can see something else if it ever changes. Yeah. So normal would be big peaks in the summer. Okay, this is all pre-pandemic. Here's the pandemic. Everything dropped off for a little bit. Then all these listings, right? All these buyers, and then everything just went to pot. I'm thinking this is already looking like it's going to be, I don't know that we're going to get to pandemic levels of buyers, just given the interest rates. But if things keep going, you can get to pre-pandemic normalcy. And we'll see. Now, there's a lot of unknowns, a lot of stuff happening. I mean, between tariffs and whatever the new rules with, federal housing, federal guarantees no longer available to green card. And certainly in the Seattle area, you got a lot of people in tech on those kinds of visas, no longer able to get FHA funding. How often do they use FHA versus conventional? Probably not that often. But my point is, a lot of unknowns in the market. We shall see how it plays out. But what you want to know is the current reality is for sellers, there's a lot more competition than there was 2 months ago. A lot more competition than there was 2 months ago. And it's looking like the buying demand is keeping up. Now, will that continue? Like, look, you can see there's actually more buyers last month than there were in any single month. Okay. So my guess is April, just given my anecdotal information, April's going to be bigger. April's going to match last May. Going to come close to last May. Okay. Which is early. Right, which means May is going to go way over last year. If this keeps going, that's the direction this is going. Now, like I said, too many unknowns for me to predict anything, but for the current reality, if you're going to list, there's going to be a lot of competition, and we don't know what the buyers are going to do. That's just how that's going to go. Can't predict that. We'll see. Let's find out what's happening. But there's what you got. If you're going to list sooner rather than later. If you're going to buy, you should know you're probably going to have more and more choices as the year goes on. Okay? That's what I got for you. Party on, Wayne. See you next month. If you have any questions, let me know. Aaron Hendon with Christine and Company over at EXP. Hey, what in the world's happening with Kitsap County real estate? Let's check it out. You're looking at the supply and demand graph over the last 2 years. Green, supply, new inventory. Blue, demand, number of homes that were sold. This is interesting because every county now is a little bit different, which is not normally the case. Usually there's a similarity in them, but so last month, February was down compared to January, this little dip between January and February. Then huge uptick, but not as big as Snohomish and yet bigger than King County. Buyers also jumped up, and there's a very small delta between the two, which means a couple things. Harder to buy in Kitsap than it is in King. Harder to buy, not harder to buy than last month, though. There's more inventory and there's more buyers. So there's more to choose from. We're now at 363 new listings in March of this year. And come on, buddy, 370. So the same as last year. So not a big difference between year to year. That's also different than the other counties. The other counties saw big deltas between last year and this year. Not so in Kitsap. So what does this mean for the future? Well, there's too many variables for the future, like 2 months from now, future. Interest rates, inflation, tariffs, chaos ball. Who knows what's happening in Washington tomorrow? Very hard to say what's going to happen with the economy, what's going to happen in the future. I just wouldn't venture a guess. What I can tell you now for this month, if you're buying, you're going to need to be really competitive with your offers because there's a lot of competition. And if you're selling, there's going to be more competition than there was, right? We're predicting it wouldn't be unpredictable to see April's numbers go up like last year from here to here. So we're talking about way more inventory. So buyers, you'll have more to choose from. Don't think the buyers are going to keep up with the inventory. My guess, especially just given the surrounding counties, that inventory is exceeding the buyers, that there's going to be more to choose from with less relative competition in Kitsap. Just that's the way it's going in general. So listing, price aggressively, you're going to have a lot more competition predictably. Buyers, case by case, but you're going to need to offer aggressively as well to match those listings. Again, if you're a buyer, someone lists it at an insane price, you should be able to get them down because there's going to be a lot of choices for people. We shall see how the long-term future plays out. But right now, case by case, let me know what you need. Love to help you with it. But overall, you're going to be facing more competition as a seller and have more choices as a buyer. That's predictable. Let me know what questions you got. Love to help you with it. Aaron Hendon with EXP over at Christine and Company. See you next month. Party on, Wayne. What in the world's happening with Pierce County real estate? Let's check it out. All right. If you remember our hero last month, inventory, you're looking at supply and demand. Green is the supply. Blue is the demand. Our hero, supply, last month dipped. We had a dip in actual number of homes available. That's the down from January to February, less homes available in February. Was it going to continue that trend or was it going to bounce up over? And you know what? It bounced up over. That was fairly predictable. That was an easy prediction, and it did. Okay, so we're back. We're over where we were last year at this time, but not by a whole lot. It's about 100 homes more. Okay, 10% increase, something like that in available listings. Not huge, but not nothing. 10% more than last year. We're on track to continue to go up. I would suspect that little dip was an aberration. What's interesting here to me is the number of buyers way closer, way more competitive in Pierce County than King County. There's way more buyers for every listing than King County. There's still more listings than buyers, but this is a super small delta. Of 1,093 listed, 1,000 went off the market. So that's super, super tight. That means if you're listing in Pierce County, you're going to have an easier time to sell than you would be in King County. There's more competition in Pierce County. If you're buying, it's harder to buy in Pierce than it is in King. More competition for less houses. That's just how that is. That would keep prices strong in Pierce County. King County, It's going to be a little bit of a weird dynamic. Let's see what happens. Everything is specific to the neighborhood. Everything is specific to the house. So be careful about making vast generalizations. Overall, this looks like we're getting back to at least pre-pandemic levels. I don't think we're going to get back to pandemic levels, but I think if this continues, whatever the kind of lockup that we were having in 2023 and 2024 has clearly loosened up. Now, there are a lot of unknowns, a lot of variables, tariffs, housing changes, FHA changes, interest rates, inflation, lots and lots of variables that could change all of this like that. This particular trend staying the same would mean we're going to get back to pre-pandemic levels of seasonality, meaning April is going to be higher than March, May is going to be higher than April, and June is going to be the highest month. Was this May? Yeah. So normally June is the highest month of inventory. We'll see how it plays out. Like I said, a lot of variables, but this is looking more and more like we're getting done with certainly with the lockup, the freeze from increased interest rates. That looks like this is loosening. We'll see how the whole thing plays out. Let me know if you have any questions about your situation. Aaron Hendon with Christine & Company over at eXp Realty. Talk to you next month. Whoa. What is happening with Snohomish County real estate? This is a shocker. Okay. If you watch King and Pierce, you should know this is radically different. So last month, dip in inventory. Green is inventory on this graph. Supply. Blue, number of units went under contract, demand. This showed last month, January to February was down. February to March, huge gain, huge jump in inventory. This is an enormous jump month to month, and it's bigger than April was last year. It's in March of 24, we had 831 sold, 998. So 150 more, 160 more homes sold. Sorry. 160 more homes came to market. So big jump in inventory. We didn't even get to this. This is bigger than April of last year, and normal seasonality would be each month goes higher. So it wouldn't be surprising to see April go way over May of last year, or at least hit the peak of last year. Now, buying demand went up, not as much as we've seen in the other two markets, King and Pierce. So there's a lot more inventory. Selling is going to be more difficult. There's a lot more competition in Snohomish than there was. Buying demand is up, but it's not up. The delta is bigger. The number of buyers doesn't match the number of new listings. So sellers are going to have a harder time. Buyers, you got it. In Snohomish, you got a lot of choices and less competition than the surrounding counties. So if you're looking to buy, this is a great, easier time to buy in Snohomish. If you're looking to list, man, you missed the boat on one hand, but the second best time to list is today. I don't think it gets better for you anytime soon. So you might as well list when you're ready, price it aggressively, be responsible for the market is changing, that it's now, there's more competition than there was. That's the current condition. What it means for the future? Well, I mean, between tariffs and interest rates and inflation and FHA regulations and chaos ball being played in Washington, it's very difficult to say if this is going to continue. If it continues, we're going to get to pre-pandemic normalcy of seasonality. We'll get May or June will be the highest month. It'll beat last year. It'll be a steady, be a lot of buyers out there, a lot of listings, probably still be a seller's market slightly like that. That's predictable. But there's so many variables that I just am not interested in anything that seems easy to predict, because this is very much, who the fuck knows territory in terms of life in 2025. So I wouldn't venture a prediction. I could just tell you now, sellers are having a harder time last month than they did the month before. Predictably, they're going to have a harder time in April than they would have in March. Buyers, you got a lot of choices in Snohomish. Price accordingly, offer accordingly. You have questions about your particular situation? That's what I'm here for. Love to help you with that. Aaron Hendon with eXp. Party on Wayne. Talk to you next month. Hey, what in the world is happening with Vashon Real Estate? Be Still My Heart. I love, not only do I love Vashon's weirdness, I love the weirdness of small data sets. So you're seeing here the last 2 years of supply and demand on Vashon. And uh, it's part of it is just small data set issues, the huge variance. But what's consistent here about this compared to the surrounding counties is January to February saw a decline in the number of listings, and March saw a huge increase. Well, this is as big of an increase percentage-wise as we've seen. We went from 7 to 24 listings. Okay, new listings went on. Now the buyers jumped to match, right? There were buyers for a lot of those properties. That's good. A lot of those properties went off the market, right? So we're at more listings than any time except 1 month in the last 2 years. 24 is the most new listings that came on for any month in the last 2 years, save April? Last May. And there were 29. So who knows what April is going to bring on Vashon, but it wouldn't be weird to see 30 to see this outstripped. If we're going to get back to pre-pandemic levels, we're going to see more in April and more in May and more in June. We'll continue to see that go up. Hard to imagine the buyers are going to keep up with it, but it's also not predictable that it's going to be like 2023 or 2024, where it was difficult to find a buyer all these months. You could see the buyers far exceeded the number of listings. I suspect, given the 2 of the last 3 months, 3 of the last 4 months, 5 of the last 6 months, buyers have been very tight with the number of listings, that there have been fact buyers for a lot of those listings. So things are speeding back up on the island after a 2-year pause where you could find a lot of things that had been sitting on the market for a long time. That's probably not going to be the case going forward into this month, to this summer. Now, that said, very hard to know what the future is going to bring. I mean, tariffs, interest rates, inflation, chaos. Who knows what's going to happen? But for the near term, there's more listings. There should be more listings in April than there were in March to look at. Buyers should have an easier time. Sellers, you're going to need to price it aggressively to get it sold. You're going to need to price it right. You're not going to have bidding wars like we did during the pandemic. You'll have to price it right, and you will, but you're not going to, predictably have the kind of market that you had. Interest rates are still prohibitive for that. But there should be more homes coming available if the trend holds, okay? And we shall see if the trend holds. We don't really know, but that's the way that looks. If you have questions about your house, the value here on Vashon, or you want to buy on Vashon, hit me up. That's what I'm here for. Aaron Hendon with Christine & Company over at EXP. Namaste. Talk to you next month.